so without further ado, can I invite Mr. Joe Baladi to start up? Yeah.
As was alluded to this morning, is how differentiated your brands are. How relevant are your brands? And how compelling are your brands? Because they're complementary issues, but they're not the same thing. You can be different, but if you're different in a non-relevant way, you're not necessarily going to get very much traction in the marketplace. So those things are related to basic branding. The whole idea of providing something that is different from the proposition of your competitor brands, or the brands and products and services that you compete against. Fundamental to brands is the kind of disruptive change that is affecting virtually all categories in business. And that's important to pay attention to, because it's redefining the rules. It's redefining business landscape, and in turn, it is also redefining business models. And unless you pay attention to that kind of a change, your business model, regardless of what it is, runs the real risk of being obsolete. And here we talk about competitive advantage. So changes you need to be aware of. So we have effectively what consumers and customers expect from companies like yours. We also have what they want. Two different things. And for just a moment here, I'm going to ask you to come on a journey with me. I'm going to go dark for a moment. And I'm going to go in a direction that may seem a little bit odd, but it's important that you stay with me for just a few moments. I'm going to walk away from business for just a moment and ask you to suspend belief and start thinking about the world in general, the world that we live in, the world that you live in, your reality as an individual, as a person, not as a consumer, or not as a business owner, or as a manager, the world you live in. Because right now, we are, in fact, in the midst of a gathering storm. And it's beyond stiffer competition, which is the first wave of things that have contributed to changing business models. We now have something else. We have global issues that are impacting how people behave. And people are, of course, consumers. Megatrends are important, and they're becoming increasingly relevant in the decision-making and the thinking that people/consumers, the new normal, use. That normal is anxiety. There is a high level of anxiety that impacts people around the world, influences their thinking and their behavior. Ultimately, what is business about? It is about impacting behavior, specifically about choosing your product or your service. What's interesting also, and ironic and depressing, frankly, is that all of this anxiety is emerging, all of these concerns is emerging at a time when the singular agent for mitigation of these problems is receding in importance and effectiveness. We used to believe that the government was going to fix some of these problems. Increasingly today, we have very little confidence in governments being able to address or even mitigate some of these issues. And the reason I bring this up is because we are increasingly seeing that vacuum being filled by what? By business. You will see. So what are people looking for? And remember, people are customers. The whole idea of today's session, folks, is to provide you with a deep dive, hopeful, minor revelation, and insight about how you might do business a little bit differently. This is the first insight. What people/customers are looking for is reassurance. They want to be reassured that things are going to be okay. And it doesn't matter what category you are in. You have the opportunity to play a role in this in one way or another, in a direct or indirect way. What implications does it have for business and your business in particular? Well, this is where we come to this conceptual idea. A lot of companies now are talking about this. How many of you have heard of purpose as a business driver? Can I have a show of hands, please? Purpose of the business you are in. What is the purpose of the business you are building? Interestingly also, what purpose does is that it reveals something else that's important today that was not so important earlier on. The vast majority of companies over the last 30 years or so advocated a position of neutrality. We need to be politically correct. So we don't take positions in anything, right? Increasingly, to get attention of people who are concerned about a whole bunch of things that are affecting their daily lives, purposeful brands, purpose-driven brands take a position. And it's connected with the whole idea that you recognize that you can't appeal to everyone. You have certain specific target audience and target segments. These are the segments. You know your segments, and you know that your position is going to resonate with those segments. So you take a position, and you take it very proudly, visibly, and you champion it. In the new world landscape, it is purpose that is going to impact and improve people's lives, and in that way create differentiation, which in the process then ultimately creates competitive advantage for companies. That's how we get involved with what's going on in the world, because we have no choice. Consumers, who are people, are saying, I'm concerned about all those things. Companies like Procter, Unilever, Virgin, many companies are now taking a role in identifying specific spaces and saying we are going to mitigate a problem. And that is how consumers are relating and choosing. That is the basis of choice. To have your core values decision-making process may include those things that you think are absolutely essential, not just in the here and now, but in the future as well. So now some of them may already exist, and you include them into the calculus. But there may be one or two that you say are absolutely critical to the category we are in, and we may not necessarily have them. You look at yourself in the mirror and you say, come on, who are we kidding? But we are going to implement certain things within the organization that will encourage the creation of those values over time. So it takes a long time to build brands to create core values that are going to stick. So that's why it's important to do what? Make sure that they're the right values, right? Don't choose willy-nilly, because you know that you're getting into this engagement, into this whole process up front, knowing it's going to take a long time to build them. Don't build the wrong ones, folks. Don't make that mistake. And the same thing applies to your purpose and your personality traits.